Hey there, come sit with me for a bit. I want to talk about something that I think a lot of us carry within us, but don't often say out loud. That feeling that you're not doing enough, that you should be further along by now, and that everyone else seems to have figured it out while you're still struggling with the basics. I know you felt it, I felt it too. Or maybe even that voice that whispers that maybe you're not really cut out for this because maybe you had to take a break, or you want to go back to something simpler, or you just thinking about walking away from the path you've been on for a while. I want to talk about why we feel that way, and I want to offer you a different way of seeing your journey. What if the most important step on your spiritual path is the one that takes you backward? Stay with me. I know it's a little crazy. Stay with me. Here's the story I've been told about growth. Any kind of growth, but especially spiritual growth. It's a highway. You start at point A, you move toward point B. The goal is to go fast, go far, and to never stop. Progress means always moving forward, means as far as you go. Success means that you're further along than you were yesterday. And if you stop, you've broken down. If you turn around, you fail. You see, that's the problem. This is a story our culture tells us. Productivity, achievement, always leveling up, always adding more, always moving forward. And somehow, this story has crept into how we think about our spiritual lives too. We talk about beginner, intermediate, advanced, and even on the Pagan Temple website, I have foundation and different levels of advancement. Just not because it's you're moving forward, but the level that you need to be at to read it. So many of us act like it's a ladder to climb. We see people online with their elaborate altars, their expensive, setups, and all their knowledge and their entire library of all these things, and then they have these massive daily practices and these elaborate things that they do, and it looks like a full-time job. And we think, that's where I should be. That's where I want to be. That's what further along looks like. But no, this is something I've come to understand. Your spiritual journey doesn't happen on a highway from point A to point B, get there as quick as you can, whatever it takes. It's more like a forest. And the rules in a forest are completely different than the highway. A forest path winds, it curves, it even doubles back on itself. It might curve around and back where you started. Sometimes you reach a clearing and you need to rest. That's okay. Sometimes the path you chose leads somewhere that you realize you don't even want to go, or you didn't know you were even heading there. Sometimes the only way forward is to retrace your steps and find where you missed a turn. The forest is alive. It changes around you. The path you walked last year isn't quite the same path today. That's a good thing. And here's the thing about walking through a forest. Forward isn't always clear. The most experienced person in those woods knows when to stop, when to look around, when to turn back, when to sit down and wait until they know which way they want to go. That's not failure, that's wisdom. If you pick one direction in a forest and head that direction, you're going to end up with more obstacles than you can imagine. Wind the forest, find your way. You'll be happier because of it. The ancient cultures that many of our traditions draw from, they understood this idea. They didn't think in straight lines. They didn't think in like narrow perspectives. They thought in cycles and seasons and the moon waxing and waning. Seeds planted, grown, harvested, the field left to rest. Birth, growth, death, rebirth. The wheel of the year that many pagans observe, it includes winter. It includes dormancy. It includes dark. It includes stopping. That's not a flaw in the design. That is the design. So why do we think our personal spiritual paths should be any different? Let's talk about where these feelings actually come from, because I think if we name them honestly, they start to lose some of the power that they hold over us. Maybe you've had this thought, I should be past this by now. You've been practicing for months, maybe years, and you find yourself returning to something basic, something foundational, and it feels like you've regressed. Like you should have mastered this particular thing already. Like asking a beginner question somehow erases all the work that you've done. Or maybe it's, I wasted all that time and now I have to start all over. Maybe you were on a path, you read all the books, you bought the tools, you built the altar, you invested into it, and now something shifted and that path doesn't feel right anymore. And you may feel like leaving it feels like admitting that the whole thing was a mistake, or that you were wrong, or I'm not spiritual enough. Life gets busy or hard, overwhelming, and maybe your practice slipped. Maybe it stopped entirely, and now there's this weight of guilt, like a real practitioner would have kept going no matter what. Like everyone else manages to show up, and somehow you couldn't. And underneath all these is usually comparison. You're always comparing yourself to other people, looking what other people seem to be doing, assuming their path is straighter than yours, believing the idea that real practitioners don't struggle in this way. Let me tell you something. Everyone does. The people with the beautiful Instagram altars, I promise you, they have seasons where the candles don't get lit. Those altars probably get cluttered. The people who seem to know everything, they have moments of doubt and confusion. They have things that they don't know. There's paths that they've never walked before. And that's okay. Maybe look at the people whose practice looks so consistent and put together. Many of them started over more times than you could probably count. This is what I want you to hear. You would not shame yourself for sitting down on a fallen log in the middle of a hike to catch your breath. You would not call yourself a failure for pulling out a map to figure out which way you're going or where you are. You would not think you'd wasted a whole trip if you realized you'd taken a wrong turn and just needed to go back. It's okay. That happens in your spiritual life too, and you need to embrace it. A path that curves and winds and doubles back isn't broken. It's following the terrain. Getting lost isn't failure. Refusing to admit that you're lost, that's failure. Getting lost is just another adventure. So let's flip this around a little bit. Let's talk about what going back actually offers you. Because I don't think it's nothing. Honestly, I think it might be everything. Depth over distance. When you walk a path twice, you see things you missed the first time. Just like watching a movie again, you notice things. The light on the path, the lights different times of the day, different seasons of the year. You notice these details that were invisible before. Your feet know the ground now, so you're able to look around more. Your eyes are free to look. There's a difference between just covering ground and walking the path and knowing the land and knowing all of your surroundings around you. Taking that path more than once allows you to afford those little moments where you'll notice things that you missed before. Integration requires you to pause sometimes. You can't digest food while you're sprinting. Spiritual experiences are the same. They need time to settle, to become part of you. Sometimes when we feel stuck, it's not that we've stopped growing, it's that we've been moving so fast that we haven't absorbed where we've even been. The pause isn't the opposite of growth. That's where the growth truly happens. I mean, the second time around is different. When you return to something foundational after years of experience, it's not the same thing that you left. A basic meditation practice by someone who's been on the path for a decade is not the same as a meditation that a complete beginner does. I mean, myself, I do the same meditation almost every day. It's not that I'm stuck in one spot. That's where the growth happens. When you're consistent and you focus on these things and you can uncover new and exciting realities or realizations. The form of doing the same thing over again might be identical. So like, again, my meditation, it's the same time roughly every day in the same form, but you bring with you everything that you learned before that day. So every day when you go back to it, you're a different person and you've learned something else. Simple practices done with presence will always, always, always surpass complex, elaborate practices done in a mechanical way. This isn't just my opinion. This pattern shows up in the myths and the traditions across cultures. Inanna, the Sumerian goddess, descends to the underworld. She is stripped of everything, she dies, and then she returns transformed. Persephone travels between worlds, above and below, in an eternal cycle. Odin, even after sacrificing his eye for wisdom, returns again and again to seek more wisdom. He's never done learning. He continues. The hero's journey that scholars have found in stories across human cultures, it requires a return. The hero who never comes back isn't a hero. They're just gone. And the connection to our ancient peoples, like say, think about agriculture, about the earth itself. A field that is planted year after year after year without any rest becomes depleted. Fallow time isn't laziness, it's how the soil regenerates. It's how the land becomes capable of new growth. The experienced hiker has favorite trails they return to again and again, not because they failed to find new ones, but because each return shows them something new. The forest changes. Like literally every day, something's different. The hiker changes every day. They're a different person. The familiar becomes a place of continual discovery. Coming back to a clearing where you once rested hits different when you've walked further. So let me get specific, because I don't want this to be just nice ideas. I want you to see yourself in this. Sometimes going back means returning to foundational practices. Maybe you've spent years exploring complex ritual work, and something is calling you back to the basics, back to breath, back to stillness, back to simple presence with the natural world. This is not regression. That might be exactly where your growth is waiting. Sometimes going back means taking a complete break. Life happens. Grief happens. Illness happens. New babies, new jobs, cross-country moves happen. Seasons where you barely have enough energy to get through the day, let alone maintain a strong spiritual practice, it happens. I need you to hear this. Stepping back during those times is not abandonment. It's not failure. It's honoring the truth of where you are. And the sacred isn't going anywhere. It will still be there when you're ready. Sometimes going back means stepping away from a particular tradition or path. Maybe you've been on a particular path for a while and slowly it's stopped fitting. The words don't resonate like they used to. The practice feels hollow or it has shifted. I mean, me personally, I've been on multiple paths before I settled on my current Norse animist path. I was deep into like Celtic spirituality and druidry for a while before I even hit this path. I was a Christian even before that. So just because we're on a path doesn't mean we have to stay on that path. Acknowledging this isn't failure, it's honesty. And that path wasn't wasted. All those paths I've been on were not wasted. It brought me to where I am now. It taught me what I needed to learn to get to the place I am now. And you can honor what it gave you while also recognizing that it's time to walk a different way. Sometimes going back means simplifying. Your practice grew and grew, more tools, more deities, more observances, more complexity. And I see this a lot with eclectic pagans, where they start adding all these different deities, they start adding all these practices, where it becomes very confusing. And it becomes heavy. Obligatory sometimes. A thing you should do rather than a thing that feeds you. Stripping it back to what actually matters, that's not giving up. That's finding the heart of it again. And sometimes going back means returning after an absence. Maybe you stepped away for weeks, months, or even years, and now something is stirring inside of you again. And there's this fear that you've lost your place, that you have to pretend you never left, that you need to pick up exactly where you stopped. You don't. You get to begin again. And as the person you are now, you don't have to perform expertise that you don't feel. You don't have to pretend the gap didn't happen. You just Start again. Start small, start simple. One step into the forest. Here's your permission. You're allowed to sit down. You're allowed to check your map. You're allowed to turn around, to choose a different path entirely. You're allowed to walk slowly or fast. You are allowed to stop and look at everything around you. Look at the moss and the trees and forget about the destination for a while. All of that is part of the journey. All of it. And you're allowed to do that. So you may ask, what does progress actually look like if it's not a straight line forward? I think it looks like depth, not distance. A deeper relationship with a few things rather than a shallow connection to many. I think it looks like a practice that actually fits in your life, not a practice that requires a life that you don't have, or a practice that requires you to change your life. I think it looks like authenticity over performance, doing what's true for you, not what looks impressive to others. I think it looks like presence over complexity, actually being there for your simple practice rather than going through the motions of an elaborate one. I think it looks like connection that's alive, not an obligation that's heavy on you. Here's what I want you to ask yourself instead of, am I further along or am I at the point where I need to be? Maybe ask yourself, does this nourish me? Am I more present than I was before? And do I know myself better? Or is my connection to the sacred world, to my spirits, to the gods, or whatever, is it alive or has it just become a checklist? And the most important question you can ask yourself is, am I being honest about where I'm at? Your path is a spiral winding through the forest. You may pass the same landmarks more than once, the same tree, the same stream, the same clearing, but you're not the same person each time you pass them. Each return happens at a different elevation of understanding. Going back and moving forward can be the exact same thing. The goal was never to walk the straightest line through the forest. The goal was never to get to the end, the vastest. There is no prize for arriving first at something that doesn't have a finish line. The goal is to walk your path, through terrain that no one else will walk exactly the same way you walk it. Other feet may have come down this path, but not all those feet touch the exact same pebbles, stones, sticks, twigs that your feet have touched. So every time somebody walks that path, it's a little different. Walk it with presence. Walk it with honesty and with an open heart. Sometimes that means stepping forward into the unknown, and that can be scary. Sometimes it means standing still until clarity comes. Sometimes it means going back to find out what you missed or to remember why you even entered the forest in the first place. Getting to those foundations will help you understand that. And none of that is failure. Turning around is not failure. That's how a forest path works. That's how growth happens. And that's how your spiritual path works as well. So wherever you are right now, whether you're deep in the trees or standing at the trailhead wondering if you should even begin, whether you've been walking for years or you stepped off the path so long ago you're not sure if you can even find it again, you're okay. You're not behind. You haven't failed. You're just in the forest. And the forest has always been the point of the walk. Thanks for walking with me for a while. I'll see you on the path. If this message resonated with you in any way, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment in the video. Share it with someone who might need to hear this same message. And if you want to connect with others who are walking their own winding paths, join us in the Grove on our Discord server. Link will be in the description. And until next time, keep being the best part of the Pagan Temple. And I hope to see you around.